and welcome to the second episode of the Economic Times Asian Business Leaders Conclave 2023. On the previous episode, we took a peek into some inspiring panel discussions and speeches. India's most dynamic leaders were also felicitated. In the second episode, we bring to you Power Pack panels decoding Asia's technological transformation and global energy transition. Jyotiraditya Scindia, Union Minister of Civil Aviation and Steel, Government of India, delivered the guest address on the theme Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, collaborative efforts for a shared future of Asia.
We in Asia belong to a region that has pioneered many practices that have been integral to societies for centuries. From agriculture to urban planning, from art to the tradition of textile making. That's the Asia of the past. But contemporary Asia too presents a diverse range of opportunities. A continent that resides over 4.5 billion people, or about 60% of the world's population, and also has the power to influence the rest of the world. There is enough proof of that. At the time when the world was scrambling to survive the COVID pandemic, Asia grew at 4.2%, which will rise to 4.6% in the current fiscal. If we go deeper into the economic parameters of Asia, we see that it has a global footprint, a footprint that has seen an incremental rise. In 2000, Asia accounted for 32% of the global GDP in terms of purchasing power parity. This share increased to 42% in 2017 and is on course to clock 52% by 2040. These trends will run on the back of a young population which is well connected to new technological developments, and one that has the proclivity to explore, experiment, and lead.
Welcome to our panel discussion on addressing global energy transition and energy security needs for a sustainable future. Our panelists in this session will assess the current status, future prospects, challenges, technologies, and investment opportunities in renewable energy for a sustainable future.
How do you see the cost of green hydrogen becoming more competitive over a period of time? I mean, do you see that happening anytime in near future? Of course, countries like India would probably have better advantage because of cheaper renewable energy, cheaper labor costs, etc. But still, the cost is still high. So, how do you see that spanning out over a period of time?
So the price is decisive. It's related to the energy prices and to the labor costs. And in that sense, India could for sure play a good role in the global competition for producing green hydrogen, because I think the costs for renewable are also, or can also be, very cheap in India. So it's at the end to build up the industries and to build up the electrolyzer industries and to have the technologies and to have the companies. So there's really a big global bottleneck at the moment, as I talked about.
And with that, as we march ahead, ladies and gentlemen, we are absolutely delighted to have the presence of our guest of honor this evening. And he's none other than Shri Ashish Kumar Singh, Additional Chief Secretary, Department of Finance, Government of Maharashtra. So firstly, can we have a mighty round of applause to welcome him?
The US President Franklin Roosevelt said, "The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little." This is a reminder that economic growth and development must be inclusive and should benefit all. Unfortunately, across the world, and more so in Asia, economic growth is often more exclusive and less equitable. What we need today is a system that is inclusive, that is participatory, and that is based on incentives, and that is capable of being flexible and adapting to change. There is a dire need for governments to create an enabling environment that promotes equal opportunity for innovation, entrepreneurship, and adaptability. Economic resilience refers to a country's ability to withstand and recover from economic shocks and disruptions, while inclusive development, on the other hand, refers to the process of ensuring that all members of society have equal access to economic opportunities and benefits. Both of these factors are crucial for long-term economic growth, social harmony, and overall systemic stability. Climate change is one of those unique issues in which we are all together and which is going to impact humanity at large. Here, the role of government has become all the more pivotal. It must take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, promote clean energy, and formulate policies that incentivize sustainable practices, failing which it is not very long that we will be a species which will become one of those which have become extinct in the past. Only through international cooperation and leadership can governments build a more resilient and sustainable future for all of us. As of today, many of you must have been watching the fact that we as a species have hardly responded adequately enough to the problems of climate change. And here, I think we as a species can only do so through the interactions between governments. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patient hearing.
Well, thank you very much, sir, firstly for joining us this evening and for sharing your valuable thoughts. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, I have requested Ashish ji to please remain on the stage as we're about to get started with the felicitations. Now, before we do so, we also have a minute to unveil the coffee table book. This particular coffee table book actually encompasses the success stories of some of the leaders. You know, they've managed to share their stories, and we managed to get their consent in order to feature their stories in the form of a coffee table book. So I'm going to be requesting our guest of honor to please click this clicker over here so that we can go ahead and unveil the coffee table book. Round of applause. There you go, the coffee table book. With that, what we're now about to do is set the stage for our next panel discussion. The big question coming your way as to what is driving Asia's technological rise. I'm going to quickly hand it over to Robin. Over to you.
Digital transformation is completely transforming business models across business functions and industry verticals. And it's also driving industry convergence. As a business leader, do you see this as an opportunity or a threat? And how do you deal with it?
A couple of examples. You know, Thermo Fisher has had a huge role to play during COVID. And, you know, we've enabled more than 40% of India's RT-PCR testing, and we've had a role to play in every vaccine that got developed. You know, we've had a huge issue during COVID. Obviously, everybody was locked down, and we created an immersive virtual lab experience to enable hundreds of labs to experience how they could actually establish COVID workflows, you know, and therefore make decisions on what to do, what instruments to buy, how to train people. It's just one simple example of how, you know, AR and VR and transformed the way we were communicating, training, and enabling workflow solutions to be adopted by our customers.
I believe that digital transformation, while it might be happening for last 3 decades or more, essentially is like converging. So it is more about digital convergence. And there can be multiple perspectives. Like I come from a technology industry which deals with variety of spectrums into supply chain. So the first perspective of this is that this is cutting across products, this is cutting across processes, and historically the way we have known digital transformation is services itself. And you know, the need of the hour is that not only you should look at convergence to let products get connected, but also look at enabling two-way communication.
Before we get to felicitating these leaders, I must also admit that we have the presence of a master storyteller this evening. In fact, as our guest of honor today, he's someone who is a passionate storyteller, who's known for backing film projects that are fresh, unique, as well as clutter-breaking. None other than the amazing, the renowned director, Anand L. Rai. So firstly, Anandji, the fact that we all know that you are a director and then you're also a prolific producer, and you've ensured that you're bringing about a lot of diversity in storytelling, with regard to Indian films. But the one thing that we all want to understand from a good leader is how did that journey begin and how's the journey been?
I belong to a very middle-class family, born in a family where mom and dad both were teachers. And I went for my engineering and ended up here because while doing the engineering and I was part of it, I realized that my inclination is towards stories. I never thought that I'll become a director, but yes, I wanted to be part of storytelling. And yes, I managed it. It is something which I always wanted to do, tell stories, and that made me the director.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, our next leader to be felicitated this evening, Chandar Agarwal, Managing Director, TCI Express Limited. But on his behalf, we have with us his colleague to receive the honor. It's time to also invite the next leader on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Hemant Jain, Joint Managing Director, Keval Kiran Clothing. The next leader to be felicitated, Balaji Vishwanathan, CEO, Explio India, and Prashant Brahmankar, COO, Explio India.
The parameters to success are rapidly changing. The industry was moving from waterfall to agile, and now artificial intelligence has disrupted the world. Everyone has started talking about ChatGPT, what it is going to do to us. Let's take an example from the industry, automobile industry. Automobile industry, the competition is not coming from the traditional players like General Motors and Hondas. It's coming from totally different technology players like Teslas, Apples, Googles, and even the workforce they need is not traditional automobile or electronic engineers. It's a totally different workforce with a different mindset. The gist is multi-skilled and agile workforce is the future. Continuous learning, continuous investment in L&D, partnership with universities to create your future workforce is very, very important. The universities today, the engineers they are throwing into the market are more with the traditional skill sets. Unless industry partnerships are there, the workforce won't come up with the newer skill sets.
Business environment is changing rapidly, and as such, the leadership skills also have to change. And it's the question of how you are able to adapt based on the changing environment and what is required. One of the key elements is the vision, the purpose, and how you're able to communicate that to the team and take them along. The next one would be the resilience and how you're able to adapt to the situation, the changing needs for the environment and to your customers and to your teams as well. The third element is the empathy that you want to show, because the needs for your people are very different. Each one of them come with a different requirement, and how you're able to actually empathize and show that you care, and the flexibility that you're able to show, the decisiveness and the priority that you're able to execute. And last but not the least, the way you communicate, how you're able to embed examples and storytelling as part of your communication as well. These are key elements for you to actually lead in this new world. And of course, it keeps evolving and changing as well.
It's time to also felicitate the next promising business leader, Chetan Garga, Managing Director and Senior Vice President, Allstate India. Can we have an all-round applause, ladies and gentlemen? Let's hear it for Chetan Garga.
Things have changed from where we were a few years back for sure. And while we've always talked about being employee-centric in angles of empowerment, trust, integrity. Empathy has become an important piece of what we have to offer to our employees. In fact, I would say empathy and keeping in mind things around their well-being and what their health needs are is equally important to what they're delivering from a business angle. So to your point, I think from an employee-centric perspective, both the transparency, integrity, empowerment, as well as empathy and wellness are both important factors.
As we applaud the leaders, let's now hear it for Rishi Anand, CEO and Managing Director, Aadhar Housing Finance Limited.
There is actually no change, real change in leadership that is required. All one needs to do is refocus, look at opportunities beyond the current area of operation. We will all need to actually get out of the herd mentality of, what is working good for others should also work good for me. We will need to get into exploring newer markets. And when I say newer markets, I typically mean markets beyond your current area of working. Go to tier 3, tier 4 locations. That is where real India is. That is where financial inclusion is required. While, we will face challenges like determining the income levels of people in these areas, but that's the expertise one needs to develop. We will all have to start thinking very, very differently and look at newer opportunities. Just look at newer pastures.
All right, then moving ahead, let's invite R. Sri Krishna, CEO and Executive Director, Hexaware Technologies. We have his colleague to receive the honor on his behalf.
30,000 Hexawarians work hard every day, bring smiles to our customers, our communities, and their colleagues. Me and my leadership team share an even simpler purpose: to build a great Hexaware. This award is a recognition of this exciting journey. Thank you. If the journey excites you, come work for us. We promise you challenging work and a great work environment.
It's time to invite our next leader, Frederick Weidel, Vice President, Head of South Asia and Managing Director, India, Oriflame, India.
Leadership will have to evolve, and I think 3 categories in particular, or areas. I think empathy and leadership really will be important going forward. Authenticity, perhaps even more important, that leaders dare to be themselves. People want to have relationships with other people, not the robots who tell them what to do. And then thirdly, I think being pragmatic. Things will change, and sometimes very fast, and adaptivity will be important. So that's how I see it.
Welcome back. It's now time to recognize and felicitate business leaders who are an inspiration to the future generation.
I'm so honored and thrilled to be recognized as one of the most promising business leaders of Asia by the Economic Times. This recognition truly speaks volumes of the successful journey of Amway and Nutralite as a brand in India, and the many milestones that we have achieved along the way. We started operations in India with just 6 products from our global portfolio, and today we have more than 140 distinct consumer offerings for daily use across multiple categories such as nutrition, beauty, personal care, home care, and consumer durables. Over the 2 decades of our presence in the Indian market, we are proud to have emerged as one of the country's leading FMCG direct selling companies with a strong network of micro entrepreneurs, of which more than 60% are women. And we also have a resilient workforce of over 2,500 direct and indirect employees.
The next promising business leaders of Asia, Deepali Goenka, CEO and Joint Managing Director, Wellspun India Limited.
The New Age leadership is all about leading from the front as a leader, and also setting an example about what leadership means to the teams. Also important is open to learning. I think the important aspect is the world is changing so fast, and if we don't change ourselves, I think we are going to be completely redundant. I mean, we are looking at AI, we are looking at Chat GPT. I mean, the world is just phenomenally changing. And I think for all of us, we have to be open to learning. And I think that sets the tone for a leader as well. And as Nelson Mandela rightly said, you fall, you rise again, but you learn from that fall and your mistakes. And last but not the least, make a better world, make a more sustainable world. The world is going through its own challenges. I think we all need to look at a more sustainable world.
The next name making it to the most promising business leaders of Asia, Yashwardhan Sinha, Chairman and Managing Director, Aditya Vision Limited. We have his team to receive the honor on his behalf.
I deploy a leadership strategy which is focused on inspiring and motivating the employees to work towards a shared goal to bring out the best in team members. I encourage them to take ownership of the work with teamwork, innovation, and growth. I set a very high expectation from my team, provide constructive feedback, and empower them to develop and implement new ideas. I have a clear vision and a strategy for my team and inspire them to work together as a team to achieve that vision. At the same time, I also adhere to ethical practices to ensure that my team's positive changes are sustainable, which includes being transparent, accountable, and fair in all decision-making processes. And in fact, I always keep the well-being of employees, customers, and stakeholders on the top.
May I now invite Shri Vivek Kumar Devangan, Chairman and Managing Director, REC Limited, the next leader to be felicitated, Shri Vivek Kumar Devangan. We have his colleague to receive the honor on his behalf. Let's march ahead and invite Girish Malpani, Chairman and Managing Director, MPM Ventures Private Limited. Can we have a louder round of applause, ladies and gentlemen?
Designing and building the infrastructure of tomorrow definitely needs leadership that is engaged. The challenges this leadership will face will be totally different to what their predecessors have ever faced. Future leaders will not just be judged on cost efficiency or their quickness in executing projects. Their key qualities will have to be innovation, bold thinking, and sustainable approach. India has just overtaken China to become the most populated nation, and as we bring more and more people out of poverty, our infrastructure needs will continuously keep growing. We are already seeing tremendous efforts being put at the center and state levels to develop the overall infrastructure of the country. Along with physical infrastructure, future leaders should focus on developing their own digital infrastructure too. We have to be at the forefront of modern technologies and their mass adaptations. Lastly, the metrics to measure infrastructure should also evolve with their time. We should do away with old definitions and come up with newer standards that are at par with the best nations in the world.